Hello, I'm Greg Hunter. Thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com. With us once again, Gregory Mannarino. Of course, he's the former floor trader for Bear Stearns. He did that in the early to mid-90s. He is a financial analyst. He is also hires himself out as a research consultant for big Wall Street banks. He has his popular GregoryMannarino.com and Gregory Mannarino YouTube channel, and also his newest channel, TradersChoice.net. Gregory Mannarino, glad to have you on USA Watchdog.
Greg, I'm always happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Good to have you here. I just want to get right out of the gate here, and this story kind of flew under the radar in most places, but a few weeks ago they were talking about stopping the QE, and now they're talking about extending QE, and this is what you've been saying for at least as long as I've known you. What say you?
Without a doubt, this can't stop. There's no way. I think what goes on here, and it's really sad the way they play this out, is you have, like, let's say someone coming out here from the Federal Reserve stating, oh, we're going to cut back on QE, we're thinking about doing this, and then we hear the polar opposite, which just came out recently being reported by Bloomberg. Why do they do this? Honestly, there's a mechanism behind this, Greg. They try to keep people off balance. They want to keep people confused. It's all part of this game that is being played against the people. The Federal Reserve, this is no secret, has become the lender of last resort. They cannot and will not ever stop this money printing scheme into oblivion, and I literally mean into oblivion, until we hit that wall and this entire thing comes apart here. That's the way I see it unfolding. I can't imagine another way. Because the next crisis here, Greg, and I think that people are too focused here on the equity markets, is going to be a crisis of currency, and which is going to wipe out everything else. It's all tied together through very complicated financial instruments called derivatives. You're familiar with that. I think a lot of your listeners are as well. But what really needs to be kept in mind here and at the forefront of everybody's thinking process is there's no way out of it. The Federal Reserve cannot and will not stop printing. If they do, it is party over at that moment.
Is this why we're seeing this big rush into physical silver and gold? I mean, a lot of reports. My friend, I have a really good contact who's been at a coin dealer. He was a coin dealer since the 70s and says he can't get silver. He can still get gold, but commissions are rising. Is this what this is a move towards? I mean, it got whacked down. Everybody said, wow, it's on sale. I mean, that's kind of backfired if they were trying to kill the price and kill the demand. It's backfired.
Well, there's a lot to it that's going on here. But, again, we're in a currency war. You and I have spoken about this. I've talked about it so many times. And this is the world central banks trying to devalue their currency. This will not stop. Again, it all plays in together about what's going on here with the world central banks. They will not stop. They cannot stop. For many, many reasons that we've gone over. Let me just show you this for your listeners and watchers. We've been hearing a lot of the talk about gold and silver and the spanking that it's taken. Really? Well, how about this? This is the U.S. dollar index since 2003. This is what it looks like. This is what's happened to the U.S. dollar, Greg, and for everyone else. Yeah, it's not good at all here. And you can see we're right now at the top of the trading range. I called every one of these tops. And I went short, and I'm telling people they should be looking to get short right here. There's going to be a lot of cash to be made. But let's just do something else. Okay, this is the U.S. dollar index since 2003. Let's look at gold. Ah, yes. Which one would you rather be invested in, Greg? Or anyone else watching? I mean, come on. This is absurd. This is the pullback we've had now. But, let's forget about all of this. Let's just focus on that. That's what the mainstream media wants us to do. This is absurd. Again, what is going on now it's multifaceted. But if we put a perspective on it and say, okay, we have prices now with regard to the spot of gold and silver where the miners will not mine. They will not mine. There's going to be shortages, something, again, I've gone over since day one, how this would unfold. This is no surprise here, what's going on here with the spot price to anyone that's followed my blog or my work, or even in my book, The Politics of Money. I outlined how this was going to play out. Everything is going right along that game line or this play line, and really you don't have to be psychic to figure this out. This is just very simple mathematical equations. Period. And there's only going to be one conclusion, Greg, and it's not going to be pretty.
Is the middle class going to get wiped out? Are we heading towards some sort of have and have not feudal system?
100%. Well, absolutely. I've outlined this before. That is exactly what is going on here. We're going back in time to a feudal system with two-tier society, the haves and the have-nots. Middle class, gone, finished, wiped out. And those are the ones that make it through this, Greg. I mean, I think a lot of people lose sight of what is really happening here and what has been relentless since 1971. Here in the United States, and since we officially went off of a gold standard here, we've seen the debt literally skyrocket. What has happened because of that is we've created an alternate reality. We've borrowed cash from the future to live a better now. And what has that done? That has created a population boom. And if you watch the debt, and if you watch the population, they've risen in tandem. So, let me ask anyone who wants to reply here, when the debt bubble bursts, and it is the biggest bubble that has been created in the history of the world, and the world population has followed that in tandem, when that bubble bursts, what's going to happen to the population? I'm going to tell you, it's going to correct. Millions of people are going to get wiped out here, Greg. And I don't mean just on a financial level. They're going to lose their lives. Why? Because of resources. Right now, we're seeing what's happening to gold and silver. These are finite resources that are going to become scarce. There is going to be a mania in these metals that people are not going to believe because they're going to get away from this Ponzi scheme of currency. And they're going to rush into metals because they're real assets. And unfortunately, that's going to cause other shortages in other commodities. People are not going to be able to acquire basic necessities to sustain themselves. And that's the main thing I want people to take away from this. This is not just a financial thing. This is a human life issue. And people are going to suffer as great as if there were a global nuclear exchange. That's the way I see it.
Catherine Austin Fitz at Solara Report, she's an investment banker, former assistant housing secretary. She says there's going to be another smackdown in gold, that the attack won't be a one-off deal. And I'm thinking, I don't want to match wits with her because she's awful smart. But this last attack in gold kind of backfired. I mean, it sent a stampede of the little people into physical metal. You can't hardly buy silver. I have a really good context, as you can't get it. We talked about that. Gold's still out there, but all the commissions are going up. And now they're talking about more confiscation of wealth in Europe for bail-ins, that Cyprus wasn't a one-off deal. Is that what you're talking about, that this is going to be more of they're just going to keep acquiring wealth, the people at the top, these bail-ins, these confiscations, these takedowns in gold and silver to try to confiscate it or try to collect it at a lower price?
That is probably part of it, but it's a lot more complicated than that. Nothing is at face value. And what I mean by that is, again, this goes back to a topic that I feel very strongly about, that I've been trying to educate people about, and that is the derivatives market. The derivatives market is probably one of the most poorly understood financial games, if you want to call it that, that is out there. And let me just go over this just real quick to put another perspective on this before I go over the derivatives. If you look at the too big to fails, and this is easily researchable, you will see that the JP Morgans, the Goldman Sachs, the Citigroups, they own 60% of the assets here in the United States. It's a takeover. They're taking over the world without firing a shot. And I've gone over the fact that Wall Street runs the world. It is not run by presidents, kings, queens, monarchs, or anyone else. It's run by the Wall Street banks. Period. And this whole thing is a mechanism to steal wealth and for them to gain power. That's really what it is. And a lot of this is through the derivatives market. Let me just briefly outline what is a derivative. People go, hey, Greg, I don't understand it. But let me just outline this as the most basic form so people can understand this. What a derivative is it a financial instrument that derives its value from something else? It's a side bet or a ghost trade in many ways, because these These don't show up on the regular balance sheets of these organizations, so they're hidden everywhere. And we're talking about quadrillions of dollars. Quadrillions! And this is the real time bomb that is waiting to go off. And let me put another perspective on this, and you and I have spoken about it. You got the collapse of 2007, 2008, the housing bubble. What happened to the collateralized debt obligations, to the credit default swaps, to the other securitized debt connected? That's all through derivatives. It's still there, Greg. It's still floating around and lurking. And not only is it floating around and lurking, because these institutions were deemed too big to fail, and Eric Holder came out stating, we're not going to do anything to these institutions because they're too big. And they are. Our votes don't count. Again, they own 60% of the United States of America assets here. So what I'm trying to say is these problems were never fixed. So these financial instruments, these derivatives have gotten bigger and bigger and more monstrous. And when they come to bite us, Greg, forget about it. It's going to shake the core of the earth. And that is going to be devastating.
Price of gold and silver, could it get whacked down again? And if you're talking about it's not even a matter of price. I guess what you're saying is that it's a matter either whether you have it or not. So it's basically possession, not price. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. This is going to be a further disconnect between the paper markets and the physical market. And in fact, there may be even be two separate markets down the line. I don't know how this is going to actually end up unfolding. But again, we're leading to a mania in metals that people aren't going to believe. Because again, it's the failure of currency. This currency war that we're in right now is going to lead people to real assets and a new financial system, period. A reset button. That's really what this whole thing is going to come down to. The paper markets, who controls the paper markets? It's the JP Morgan, it's the Goldman Sachs, it's the cities, it's all of these individuals, these entities, in collusion with the Federal Reserve, and they solely exist to manipulate the price and to keep people's perception in check. People need to understand that the whole mechanism of this is to affect the beliefs of people and how they think the financial system works. And whatever they think is wrong. Because I've been here on the other side for a long time. I know how this really works. And that's really what I'm trying to enlighten people. Say, hey, you know what? Get out of it. Get out of this system. But at the same time, you need to become your own central bank, meaning do what they do. If you do what they do, if you can sit back and say, hey, what's really going on? Every single move in the financial and economic markets needs to be evaluated by stepping back and saying, okay, how are the big banks going to exploit this? That's how every single move needs to be analyzed. And then we know what we should do. And the most simple way is just to get out of their system, but at the same time become your own central bank. And how do you do that? Get out of the currency, get out of the fiat Ponzi scheme, acquire precious metals. That's the number one rule. And again, watch what they do, emulate what they do, and you'll have the best chance of getting through this.
Well, with this last big takedown, China has been acquiring gold by the ton. They've been just importing tons and tons of gold in it. And I guess you could say do what central banks do or do what China's doing. That country's run by traders.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Do what China's doing, because China is becoming their own central bank because they want the world's reserve, and they're going to get it. Greg, the dollar's reign, and this is what it looks like since 2003. I'm sorry, everyone who thinks cash is king, is over. This is where you need to be. Precious metals, gold, same time period. I don't care what they do to the paper spot price. These assets at one point are going to be realized for what they actually are. And that is real money. And this whole other scheme is done. It's coming apart. It's nothing but a Ponzi scheme. They print this cash out of thin air. They disperse this cash to the world. Soon as they print it or add it to a digital screen, it begins to acquire interest. Interest that they print out of thin air. If that is not the definition of a Ponzi scheme, I don't know what is. They also run the biggest conflict of interest in the history of the world. They spew this cash out and they are acquiring gold. They're acquiring hard assets. That's a conflict of interest of epic proportions. They're telling everyone that gold is not real money. Meanwhile, they're acquiring it in mass. Countries are, governments are, the central banks are, the JP Morgans, all these. Despite what you may see in the paper markets, trust me, these institutions are not stupid, and they have hordes of this stuff that they're banking on because they know what they're doing down the line here. They know how this is going to unfold.
Gregory Mannarino, TradersChoice.net, and his popular YouTube channel, Gregory Mannarino. Thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you, Greg.